All right, good morning and welcome to Legislative Post Audit. I'd like to, of course, remind the committee that you need to talk into your microphone so everyone can hear you that may be online. And we will be live streamed, of course. Be sure and sign your travel vouchers that are provided. We also want to thank Braden Heidner, Lowe and Associates for providing lunch, and thank our vice chair for arranging it. We appreciate that. And as we proceed through today's agenda, again, just special thank you to our auditor, Justin Stowe. It's his last day, and we will definitely want to recognize him at the end and give everybody an opportunity to say a few words to Justin before he departs from us officially. So, all right. Committee, the first item on our agenda is data mining request. I'd like to recognize Matt and everyone, if you would turn to tab 8.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Matt Etzel. I'm going to be going over our proposed data mining work for next year. So just as a quick reminder, state law requires us to conduct audit work at each state agency at least once every 3 years. And one of the ways that we do that, one of the ways we meet that requirement is through our data mining work. So for the last few years, our data mining team has been reviewing state agency credit card transactions for some suspicious purchases. And we plan to continue that work into next year. So we'll be looking at the state's fiscal year 2021 credit card transactions, and then we'll follow up with state agencies as needed on any suspicious transactions that we find. We're also requesting approval from the committee to allow us to review the state's supplemental assistance programs for cases of fraud and abuse. So this would be new for next year. And that would include things like the temporary assistance for needy families program and the supplemental nutrition assistance program. Basically, if approved, we'd work with DCF to understand the data that they have for these programs. And then assuming enough data exists for a good review, we'd apply our data mining techniques to that data to look for things like cases of imposter fraud, cash for card schemes, and any other cases of fraud or abuse that we might find. So that's just a quick summary of our proposed data mining work for next year. I'm happy to stand for any questions the committee might have.
All right, committee, what questions? Yes, we have Representative Barker.
Thank you. Good job. So you're going to prepare, or the post auditor will prepare a document to see exactly what you're going to be asking us to approve, correct? It would be like an audit request. Is that, Justin?
Representative Barker, so actually in this case, all we're requesting is the permission to get the SNAP and TANF data that we would need to conduct this type of review. So the audit proposal in that sense is it's our standard data mining process, which is to cull through those transactions and try to find outliers. What really brought this on is we've talked to some of our colleagues in other states who have found some really pretty interesting fraud schemes, and we've been trying this data mining work for a while and felt like, well, we could do that if we just had the data, like it's finding those bad actors. So if the committee wanted more specifics, we could of course work together to put that, work with DCF to figure out exactly what that looked like. But we're trying to keep it pretty narrow already. It would just be whatever data it is that we need to look for certain schemes for fraud and abuse with them. But certainly if the committee wants more specifics, we'd be happy to put that together and put it in front of you, if you're more comfortable with that process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, committee, other questions? So what we're looking for is a motion to approve the evaluation of the state's TANF and SNAP data for cases of fraud or abuse. And do we have an approximate time frame?
We'd be starting relatively soon, so we'd start at the beginning of the year. I would think that we'd be able to have results by the end of next year.
Okay, all right. All right, Senator Tyson has made the motion. Is there a second? Okay, second by Representative Barker. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, we have the audit recommendation report, and we'd like to recognize Kristen to update the committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'll keep this pretty short and sweet, but yesterday you all would have received an email actually from us about this particular thing. So we follow up per committee rules twice a year on the actions agencies have taken to implement our previous audit recommendations. So we just recently did that, and it's just a reminder to you all, it is what agencies tell us they've done. We don't actually do anything to audit that again. But we recently completed that process, so the updates are now available on our website. You can also navigate to it from our homepage if you're interested in checking it out. So the highlights of that are that most of the recommendations have been implemented or are in process according to the agencies, but there are a couple or maybe a few exceptions. So KDHE is one of those. They are not implementing our recommendation from the HCAP audit because of some other legislation that was passed that prevents them from being able to make some of those changes. And then 3 of the 6 counties from the county procurement audit did not respond to our request for information. So our plan is to continue to try to follow up with them. Nicole and I work on this together. So we'll keep trying to get information from them, but we weren't able to do that by the time we were ready to kind of put it out there for you all to see. So with that, that's kind of the quick, brief update. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Kristen, just a quick reminder, did everybody else that we audited or you audited throughout the year, they did respond? It was just those 3?
Just those 3 counties.
Which counties?
It is, let me look for just a second. I brought it with me. It is Greeley County, Pawnee County, and Wallace County.
Okay, we have 2 questions here. Representative Barker?
Did they give you a reason why? Is it just too much work for them, or?
Why they didn't respond?
Right, because if I recall correctly, this is Representative Tockliffer's request for this audit. And you know, just that I don't understand why they don't want to comply.
We weren't able to, I mean, we sent several emails and tried several times to call and just couldn't get a hold of anyone, so we'll keep trying.
So would you be able to identify the representatives or senators that represent these districts and just let them know?
Yeah.
Would that be?
Yeah, I think
so
we can
they
do
can
that.
also reach out to them and ask that question. Justin, and then Representative Burrows.
Just going to follow up as well. You'll remember, the committee might remember that every year we typically put together an audit proposal that has us conduct follow-up. And these type of things would be one of those things that might put someone on that list, is that they didn't respond to us. And so then we could put in front of the committee an actual audit, in which case we don't take no for an answer, like we might on a recommendation process.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Burrows.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The KU Med Center, do we know what kind of audit we will be conducting? Is it an IT audit? Because we've had them in a couple of times and we hear their reasoning. I'm just curious as to.
Representative, that is going to be our next item, so we'll be able to get to that, and let's be sure and note that question and go in some detail on that. Perfect. Other questions about?
Just one more.
Yes, more Representative Barker.
And this is more for the chair or a future chair. You know, in the past, we could bring those counties in and ask them. You know, that's what you do. You issue an order to compel. I don't know if we have that authority, but the courts do, and I think we do. And we can have them actually appear in the committee, or we could ask questions. Why aren't you complying?
And even before, I think that's an excellent idea. And then we could give them that one more opportunity, which would be through their representatives and senators. And then adding to that, add the attachment of the audit report for their particular county. That would be helpful so that they can look at it. And then that representative or senator, whoever it might be, can evaluate it and perhaps get a response. Yes, Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good discussion. I'm thinking possibly, what would a letter to that county from you, the chair of the committee, CCing the senators and the appropriate reps on that, asking them to respond. I'm just thinking sort of out of the box here on
That's a
another
great
way.
idea, and I think coming from the committee, that might be a good second way to follow up. Nope, it looks like Tamara's saying no. Okay. Okay, what about just the chair? Okay, that would be great. Senator Tyson?
That's what I was going to suggest. There are alternative. We ran into this in rules and regs, so thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. If that concludes our discussion on this item,
Would that
Yes,
require
Representative.
a motion that the committee authorize the chair to write such a letter? I'll ask the reviser that. That's helpful.
Yeah, thank you. So as I was saying, Policy 33 prevents joint committees from speaking for the legislature and sending letters, except through reports and recommendations. So we can work with the chair and the committee to find a way that we can work within those parameters.
Would that require a motion from the committee, or would it not?
If,
I just want to give the chair as much latitude as possible.
would the recommendation be dancing on the lines of what you're saying is prohibited?
if you want to have everything completely above board, you might as well have a motion from the committee. if
Okay.
that's what you-
There you go.
Then I'll make the motion.
Motion has been made and it has been seconded by Senator Olson. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries, and thank you very much for helping me with that letter. And then we can, of course, send it to the committee, and so you'll know what it is. Great, thank you. All right, committee, we're going to go on to the next item on our agenda, annual IT security plan. Katrin is here, and turn to tab B. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. I am here to present our proposed IT security plan for calendar year 2022. The memo I will speak from is in tab B of your notebooks. You're all familiar with our IT security audits. You will hear another one later this morning. By law, we are required to conduct these types of audits. To select which agencies are audited, we conduct a statewide risk assessment every 3 years, and that is required in Committee Rule 6-2. We did the last risk assessment in 2019, so another risk assessment will be due this upcoming year. We used the 2019 risk assessment to propose auditing 4 state agencies in the next year. You will see those agencies listed in the first set of bullets of your memo. We selected those agencies based on their inherent risk, past audit results, and other factors. We also added 1 school district to that proposed audit list. Last year, the committee instructed us to audit 1 school district for every 4 agencies, so we proposed the same mechanism for this year. We picked Great Bend, which makes up the 5th bullet. And also, as you can see in the memo, we selected some alternatives in case any of the proposed entities have scheduling issues. And those are listed in the second set of bullets in your memo. One point of clarification, if I can, we do plan to audit 5 agencies. That is a little bit less than our typical load. Again, that's because we're in our 3rd year, or will be in our 3rd year of our triennial IT audit plan. We have to set some time aside to conduct that risk assessment I spoke about, as well as a public summary report that will cover all audits, all IT audits that we will have conducted over the last 3 years, so 2020, 21, and 22. And that concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions you might have.
All right, Katrin, thank you very much. And we have the overview here. Committee, what questions do you have for Katrin? Any concerns with the agencies or the school district? None? All right, then. Is there a motion to approve the annual IT security audit plan? There is a motion, all right, a motion by Burrows and a second by Olson. Discussion. Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure that we have included, I know that we talked about an IT audit for the Department of Labor. Is that, where would that fall in on this priority list?
We have that particular agency slated for number 2 in the list, and that's simply because
I see it now. I'm sorry, that was my mistake.
it is listed in the first bullet, but the order is slightly different simply because we have already started with Parsons, so we're going to just follow through with Parsons, and then Labor will become the second agency of the year. So they'll be coming up pretty quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure that was still a high priority. Thank you.
All right, other questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. Thank you, Katrin. Committee, the next item on the agenda, annual IT monitoring plan, and we are now in tab C, and Katrin's up again.
Back. Yes, so tab C is what I'm speaking from. Very quickly, state law requires us to monitor ongoing IT projects to identify signs of project failures. To select projects for this work, committee rules do require us to perform a risk assessment on projects reported to the Enterprise Project Management Office, or EPMO for short. We did that last in 2019. Back then, we did choose the Kansas Bureau of Investigation Automated Fingerprint Identification System as our project to monitor. We've been monitoring that one for the last 2 years. We picked this project because the system is pretty critical to law enforcement, as well as many other entities that rely on fingerprinting processes. So again, we've been monitoring this one for 2 years now, and it is kind of hitting its peak in this year. So we are simply proposing to continue for 2022. And I'll stand for questions.
Any questions, committee, for Katrin? Yes, Representative Burrows.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have we reached out to the KBI to determine what other methods they may be switching to in unison with APHIS?
I am not entirely sure I understand the question.
There may be an additional program that they may be wanting to bring online. We should probably ask that question. I know we continue to follow this fingerprint thing, but I think there's other identifiable traits that may be in use more so than APHIS all the time.
Maybe if I can answer a little bit more generally, we have not looked at what the current projects are that are in the bag for EPMO. If we were to shift gears and change monitoring of a different project, we can certainly do that. It would require us to do another risk assessment to look at what is in the bag currently to figure out if another project might be better to monitor. I will say that this particular work, time-wise, it requires currently very little of our time because we're familiar with this particular project. If we were to switch, it would have a learning curve for us. We can certainly do that, but right now, that is why we're focusing on that one. I know that the KBI has other projects, and I also, just through word of mouth, know that there's other IT projects in the state, of course. So, if the committee is interested in having us do another risk assessment to kind of reopen what we're actually doing in that, obviously, we would be at your pleasure for that.
Representative Burrows, did you have a particular request you were working on?
No, I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the committee that I do know that there's other activities. I just don't want to see us spinning our wheels. APHIS is important to law enforcement. It truly is, and we need to ensure that it's operating properly. It wasn't my intent to disrail anything. It was just my intent to be advised that there are other things that are being utilized and brought online. So just didn't want to throw additional money and time and effort into something that if just because we have to, we may want to replace it with something else. That's all.
Okay, if we go ahead and approve this, it will continue through 2022, and then the Legislative Post-Audit Committee, as well as Legislative Post-Audit staff, could take a look at how we would rather proceed for the next year. If that is approved by the committee, that's what the motion will do, unless there are any suggestions for change. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. I personally don't know enough about it, so I wouldn't be able to weigh in intelligently, but if somebody else does or wants to change the motion, they can. If not, any further discussion on this? Questions for Katrin? And then we would be needing a motion to approve the annual IT project monitoring program. If there's anyone that's would like to do that, or Senator Tyson makes the motion. It's seconded by Representative Gardner. Any further discussion in light of our discussion? No? All right. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and please note in the minutes of the conversation so we can take a look back at it for the future reference. We are doing great on time. We are moving along. The next item on our agenda is planned legislative report meetings, and we'd like to recognize Justin to discuss the meetings we plan to hold with legislators to discuss our reports, and that's tab D. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're already seeing the results of me turning the meeting over to my deputy here. Everything just smooth as silk, ahead of schedule. Must be nice. I'm going to have to do a little work today, though, so I'm going to talk briefly from this memo. If you recall, a couple years back, it used to be that we would have the committee at the end of every performance audit that we presented to you approve which committees we were going to share the results of that with. What we decided a couple years back, and this has been now put into committee rules, is at the end of every year, we go back and look at all the work that we've done that we feel still needs some coverage. So there may be some audits. So last session, we actually presented a lot, and we feel like, okay, those have been out, the legislature's aware of it, but this is really work we've done the past year that we think we need to hit again in the legislative session. We are supposed to bring to this committee a list of those planned meetings, which is what is in front of you. Mostly what we're looking here from you all as our committee members is just if you think we've neglected an important committee on this list that might be related to the audit reports that are listed. So you'll see, for example, for the school district's IT security limited scope audit that we recently did, we are going to plan to at least offer meetings with the chair, vice chair, and ranking minority member of House Education, House K through 12 education budget, and Senate education. So this list is just our intention. It kind of lays out our map of how we're going to try to meet with these chairs, vice chairs, and ranking minority, just so they're aware of our work and how it might relate to their subject matter. So if either now or in the future, the committee members look at this and think that we need to add a committee to the list that's not here, please let us know. You'll note that we do leave off House Appropriations and Senate Ways and Means because at the beginning of every session, we typically go to both those committees and talk about all the work that we've done because of their prominent role in the budget process. So, Madam Chair, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Justin. I like to see things in black and white, so I appreciate the list. The only thing I might add is social service budget for evaluating mental health and reviewing foster care, because Representative Will Carpenter gets really deep into all of that subject matter. I'm not sure what his time availability is because he's got such a huge budget, but if you wouldn't mind just at least reaching out, that'd be great.
Will do. Thank you.
Any other? Senator Corson.
I know that last session, some of our elections-related bills went through the Senate Fed and State Committee. So on the grants received by local election officials, I didn't know if we wanted to add the Senate Fed and State Committee just because they handled, I don't want to represent all, but I know at least some of the election-related bills that the Senate dealt with this past session. Thank you.
And that can be done.
We have the chairman of that committee here, if he has input, of course.
All right. Any other discussion? We appreciate you reaching out to chairs because there's so much information and we get lost in it also. Thank you very much for providing that detailed report to those chairs so they can decide how to proceed. And it's not just an audit on the shelf. So, okay, thank you. Good, you're good. All right, so consent calendar items, we have Chris, and this will be tab E.
Thank you, committee. Just a reminder, this is the consent calendar, so unless there is objection from the committee, the following items will be considered approved by the committee. We have 3 items today. First of all is the minutes from October 5th. Those are the first attachment. The second, we do have a limited scope audit proposal that has been preliminarily approved by Chairman Williams. Again, anyone who has an objection to this proposal shall state such objection in the form of a motion. This proposal is attachment B. It has to do with social workers in K through 12 schools. The reason this request came up, in 2018, the legislature approved funding for the Mental Health Intervention Team Program, and that established a partnership between school districts and community mental health centers. This was supposed to allow schools to access services already in place in the community rather than create their own. I guess the concern raised was that contrary to that purpose, the number of social workers employed by school districts has actually increased in recent years. So this would just be a limited scope audit, again, just a quick look, looking at how the number of social workers employed by K through 12 school districts has changed 2018 forward. If there's any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions, committee? Yes, Representative Barker.
Thank you. And this is not an objection to the limited scope audit, just a question possibly for the post auditor. You know, and I think Representative Burrows and I were here when we created this program about 9 years ago on the limited scope. And we had a limit at that time of the number of limited scopes that we would approve. Because if you get too many, then you're taking people away from other audits that we've voted on. So I guess my question is, how many limited scope audits have we done this year? Because all of them require minimum, I think the maximum is 100 hours. But if you get 10 or 20 of them, and I think we had to limit the number of them that we could do a year. And so how many did we do this year?
Looking.
Because we started this when Scott Franks was last year here, prior to Justin coming on.
Yeah, so we've done, Representative Barker, we've done several already this year that have been, maybe a couple that have been cleared through. We have currently 6 in the docket, so 6 that have been approved. There is not, by committee rule, there's no official limit to how many.
Exactly. But at that time, Scott said this is the most we could do.
Yeah, we currently aren't at that limit now. If we get to that limit, we can let you know. We find that so long as we can, you all give us the flexibility, which so far you have, to stick them in where we can fit them in, it's not created a problem. There may be a point where that comes to be, and then we would proactively let the community know.
Because it was a great program, because it allows every legislator an opportunity to get a look-see at 100 hours. And, you know, the members of the legislature have recognized that, and they're using it more. I mean, the first year, I think we had 2. But Post Audit has done a great job of going out and talking to the members and saying, you know, you have this option to submit this. And I was just wondering where we were at, if we were getting around the 20 or.
Good question, because I lose track of that. And I think originally I was told around 10, but it kind of depends on how quickly they're moving and how, you know, how filled up we have put the regular audits as well. Have we exceeded or so forth? So any other questions about this audit? Yes, Representative Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't really have any problem with the basic audit. I guess I would just be maybe concerned about the possible results might be skewed, because if we're looking at how many social workers over that time frame, and with the pandemic, I believe school districts probably went out and tried to hire additional social workers with their CARES money and other monies that would flow through. So I would just caution that we need to be careful on if we're just looking at straight numbers during, you know, comparing, because we're going to probably see an increase, but we just need to keep that in mind.
Thank you, Representative. And I think what it does is it gives you just this bottom line view, And it does not by any way, give a conclusive argument for more, for less. It just lets you know where we are. And then those committees that relate to this, whether it's health or education, can evaluate whether or not, is this the right direction? Are we funding it the way we need to? It's just a look. So, but thank you for your comment. Representative Burrows.
Thank you, and if I may, we have put a tremendous amount of time and effort through appropriations into mental health services, and it's reached all the way into the communities and into the school districts. So I want to make sure that we're not, the word social worker, does that include mental health providers? Are we talking about those type of wraparound services? And my colleague brought that up and brought it to my attention. I'm just kind of curious what we might consider the definition or the perception of social worker might be.
Okay, and we can definitely ask Chris but the way I understood it is it's somebody that actually has a degree in social work. But Chris, you can expand on that.
Yes, I believe that's true. I believe it is licensed social workers would be
And I think the bottom line is that we have these community mental health centers throughout our counties and our regions, and they're having a hard time maintaining services because they're losing social workers in a field that is underserved already, and they cannot pay what school districts pay. So that's kind of where it started, is that this mental health pilot program wasn't meant to compete against the community mental health service centers. It was meant to work with them. And what happened is it pulled, what has been seen by some, we don't have conclusive evidence, is that it's pulling social workers to the districts where they're working 9 months of the year, school hours, and not 12 months of a year in the community setting. So it may be, that's something, we're not evaluating that. We're just providing the numbers so somebody else can take a look and make that judgment. Does that make sense of where it came from and the complexities of it?
I think it makes sense. I don't disagree with the analogy. We may have created something to try to address the mental health aspect, and I just want to ensure, I do know I heard from the Board of Education in a meeting a couple of days ago in reference to how hard it is to recruit social workers. And so I just want to ensure that if we're going to do this, we're doing it for what I would consider the right reasons and not to put a spotlight on something that may endanger the intent of social workers becoming more involved within our communities. I don't want to lose that drive that we have. We already have a glut in services, so.
Right. I think Representative Burrows, I could put your mind a little bit at ease on that because Representative Landwehr is one of the proponents and one of the original founding members for this mental health pilot program, very much an advocate for it. I think people want it to stay. It's how is that relationship between the two? Ideally, we would want our social workers, if we have a greater need of social workers and we don't have as many in the pipeline, then we want more of them to be available in the community health center. I would think that's not what this audit does. But the reason I would want that is because I'd want those services for those kids and for those families year-round, not just school hours. I'd want them in the school hours, but also year-round. But we can all be rest assured that's not what this audit does. It just provides that preliminary information so that somebody else can take a look and see, are we doing the right thing? Are we helping the right way? But in no way is it meant to take away social services.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Representative Burrows.
I just want to go on record as stating there's been policy actions taken in the last handful of years that impacted those social services within the school districts, as well as the communities. So it's just a budgetary issue. I just don't want to see this become a political football. It's really important that those kids have services and the districts be able to provide those. And it always comes up with educational funding, those kind of resources, and those are the first things stripped out of the schools for our kids. This has been a very trying time these last 2 years with this pandemic. And all of us have heard one time or another how it's impacted the young people of this state. And I'm just very concerned about the direction this may be going.
Okay, and duly noted, and I would just note that the legislature does not dictate to our school districts of exactly how they spend for social services. They can hire a social worker anytime they want. They do have the funding for that, and with the Bay State aid increases in 2023, we see a $258 million increase. That's like $140 per kid just for the base. In addition to that, you've got $1.5 billion of federal money, so I don't think the money's the issue. I think it's potentially that they don't have enough people in the pipeline to take those jobs. But by no means, it's a local issue for social workers. And so this is not going to change a local issue, which is how I hire people at my local level. So Representative Topliker. But we can remove it. If you want to vote, if you want it to be removed from the consent calendar, we could do that and vote on it separately. So just keep that in mind. We'll go to Representative Topliker. If you'd like to do that, you can make that motion. Otherwise, the consent agenda would be automatically approved with it. Representative Topliker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't been on appropriations, so I haven't been in on the history of this, creating this, but it looks like in 2018 that this funding was approved for the partnerships, right? Okay. Now, evidently, that was done through some sort of a proviso in an appropriations bill, or?
No, it was it's in separate on the education budget. Now, and at times it has been part of the overall mega budget, but last year you would have passed it in 2134 or whatever that was, right? 2134. So we have grant dollars we put towards this, and the governor had reduced it, and then we added back. So that's where you'll find us.
Okay, so we actually have this in specific detail in writing on this, what this partnership is supposed to be, and the money that's sent to the districts, and how it's all supposed to operate. So I guess I see on the bullet points at the bottom of the memo that it is looking at the numbers and the the number that are hired and then the salaries, but it also looks at the reasons why districts are doing this. So, and their challenges. So why are they going beyond the partnerships? So I'm okay with that. But I understand Representative Burrow's concerns that, we do need to provide these workers and do the job that they do, but and the protection of the program, but it should be carried out as it was written up. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Representative Rose, I just want to check and see if you're comfortable with us going ahead, and we don't have to formally approve the consent calendar, but you can object to it or pull an item off if you would prefer, and we could vote on it separately.
Madam Chair, it's not my intent to pull it off. It was a matter of discussion to bring to light that some of the policies in the past that have been acted through education funding has impacted a lot of our districts in a manner that we are trying to play catch up. And I appreciate all the discussion about how much money has gone into public education, but I think there are those of us that could argue how much was stripped out of public education for a period of time. So I just want to go on record as stating that I understand the audit. I just want to understand the politics of the audit.
Okay, but then totally understand. We appreciate that. But as an education budget chair, I have to tell you that we've exceeded the rate of inflation far beyond 2009 in our education total funding. So that is one of those things that gets misunderstood a lot. But we have exceeded the rate of inflation even in the last decade and beyond. So, but there have been a few years of negative, but overall we've exceeded the rate of inflation. Hopefully we can. I don't know what's going to happen with inflation right now, but we'll just leave that alone. And if that, yes, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If anybody is interested, I actually have a chart over from 2008-9, and it shows who cut K through 12 education, state, federal, or local. And it would be amazing for people to see where those numbers were actually cut at. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Tyson, if you'd like to provide that to staff at Legislative Post Audit, then it's always good to be educated and.
I'll be glad to do that.
Sure.
It's, and my source is legislative research. I ask for it every year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If there are any other comments on the consent agenda, it is formally approved. Yes, Chris.
Madam Chair, there's one more item
Oh,
on the
sorry about
consent
that.
calendar. Sorry about that. So we've been through the minutes and we've been through the limited scope. The third and final item is designation of K-goal audits. For those of you unfamiliar or new to the committee, K-goal is a law that's been on the books for a number of years. It's the Kansas Governmental Operations Accountability Law, I believe. And that statute requires LPA, post-audit, to designate 4 audits each year that meet the intent of K-goal. And K-goal is, it has a number of provisions in it. It's about efficiency, it's about programs providing public benefit, it's about would federal funding be jeopardized? So audits that look into any of those areas. Are agencies addressing complaints? Are they doing more than necessary? That sort of thing. It's a pretty broad law. So each year, once a year, we designate 4 audits that we think meet the intent of K-goal, because we are required to do 4 audits that meet the intent of K-goal. For this year, we have designated the Department of Labor response to COVID-19 unemployment claims. And that would be meeting the kind of, is technology up to date aspect of K-goal. We also designated STAR bonds. Our thought there was, is the program doing more than it's intended or authorized to do? There was some question as to whether STAR bonds was going beyond just tourism, or was tourism the original goal? The third one is foster care case plan tasks. K-goal has a provision about, is the program burdensome to the public at all? So that audit looked at if the case plans for foster care were doable and overburdensome on the parents. And finally, the fourth one, examining distributions from the healthcare provider tax. And that one we thought touched on, there was a K-goal provision about federal versus state funding. That program was supposed to be state general fund neutral, that sort of thing. So those are the audits we think best meet the provisions of K-goal. And that is the final item on the consent calendar.
All right, and those are audits that we have completed. So any questions on those? All right, so the consent agenda is then approved. Thank you. All right, the agenda says it's 10:46, and the agenda says it's 11:10. So we have a lunch break, but we probably it's a little early. So Justin, would we like to go ahead and move into executive session?
I think that'd work well. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The committee is amenable to that. It's a 20-minute executive session for the first one that we're suggesting. Then we can check with the committee and see where everyone's appetites are, and we can continue to plow forward if we want. And
Okay, that would be great. So Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to recess this open meeting for a closed meeting pursuant to KSA 75-4319A to discuss matters relating to security measures that protect the information systems of the Kansas Department of Agriculture under the justification listed in KSA 75-4319B 12C. Because of discussion of such matters in an open meeting would jeopardize such security measures to resume the open meeting in the room 546-S at 11:06. Thank you. And to record this motion if adopted as part of the committee's permanent records. Thank you.
Yes, we have a motion by Senator Tyson and a second by Representative Topokar. Discussion. All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? No, none. So we will now go into executive session and turn off your microphone. All right, we are returning from executive session in which no action was taken. And Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to recess the open meeting. Let me ask you for how long? 20 minutes, 25? Okay, thank you. I move to recess the open meeting, this open meeting for a closed meeting pursuant to KSA 75-4319A to discuss matters relating to security measures that protect the information systems of the Kansas, I'm on the wrong motion. It's not the Department of sorry. Matters relating to the Department of Education, or post-audit, including recommendations for an interim and permanent successor under the justification listed in KSA 75-4319B1, because this constitutes a need to discuss a personal matter of non-related personnel, non-elected personnel, to resume the open meeting in room 546S at 11:28, and to record this motion, if adopted, in the minutes as a part of the committee's permanent records.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? There's a second by Representative Barker. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We will go into executive session. All right, we are returning from our executive session, and Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would make a motion that we recommend Chris Clark as post-audit permanent position and the salary of the existing post-auditor.
All right, and we have a second by Representative Gardner. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of appointing Chris as our new post auditor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion unanimously carries. Congratulations. All right, committee, we do have a request. We have a representative from the Department of Agriculture, and so Senator Tyson's going to make a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will turn to the motion. Oh, I've got it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to recess this open meeting for a closed meeting pursuant to KSA 75-431-9A to discuss matters relating to security measures that protect the information systems of the Kansas Department of Agriculture under the justification listed in KSA 75-4319B 12C, because discussion of such matters in an open meeting would jeopardize such security measures, to resume the open meeting room at 11:45 in room 546 South, and to record this motion if adopted as part of the committee's permanent record.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second by Representative Topliker. Any concerns? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, none. All right, we will go into executive session until 11:45 and return for some lunch. next meeting date, we can discuss that. And then, actually, I think that's the only other item other than we'd like to recognize Justin. So we could just establish our next meeting date or discuss it, Chris? And then we'll come back to Justin, and then Senator Olson's first, and he's got to go.
The first meeting of the session is, we're looking at upcoming meetings. Normally, the first meeting of the session is the committee reorganization meeting, where the committee membership votes on a new chair, vice chair, and executive committee member. We will do that. I will be working with the current chair, though, because we do have 2 statutorily required pieces of business that we have to conduct. One is due by January 15th, so that would be the audit looking at the economic impact of taxation and exemption issues relating to nonprofit and government entities competing against for-profit businesses. That's an audit report. So we'll need to release that. And we have another statutory requirement that the Department of Commerce come present their annual report to Legislative Post-Audit. That has to be done also in January. So if I will be working with the current chair to see if we can schedule a meeting to get those 2 requirements out of the way, and then the committee would vote on new committee leadership, and then we will have a new chair for forward meetings. We have a number of audits coming up early in the session. In case you're interested, one on performance-based budgeting, one on foster care, economic development evaluation of IRBX, K through 12 remedial education, that's a limited scope, and another IT security audit. All of those will be coming up. So we'll have a number of meetings probably in January and February.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And so it looks like, we come back on the 10th, so maybe tentatively we want to have a lunch. There are lunch meetings, so probably Wednesday the 12th. So start looking. If you know that you're going to have conflicts, then let us know. And then, thank you, Chris. We'll get together on that. Any other items for Chris on the upcoming meeting schedule? All right, awesome. Well, I wanted to take a moment and thank Travis Lowe. He's here, and he has brought us some lunch today. He's with Braden Heidner, Lowe and Associates, BHL. Thank you so much for providing our lunch. And thank you, Senator Tyson, for scheduling that. And I'd like to recognize Justin Stowe. So you're on the hot seat now, but Senator Olson is going to be stepping out. So I want him to say a comment, and then I will, and then everybody can join. Thank you, Senator. That's awesome. Okay, so our committee did want to leave you with a little Kansas gift. There's a couple little items in there, and I think we all have signed that card. We do appreciate you so much, and you both have an amazing temperament because, I mean, you're working with a lot of type A people around this table. Maybe not everyone, but some majority of us. And so, yeah. So we hope you will drink your coffee or your hot tea or whatever else you put in there. And we thank you so much for everything you've done. We wish you well, and I hope you'll stay in touch. And Chris, I hope you'll report back to us and let us know how happy he is and, all the wonderful things about how your family is getting used to Washington. And I just want to open the floor for anybody that wants to say a couple words to Justin, if you would. Senator Tyson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Justin, when Scott left us, I was concerned. I didn't think he could be replaced, but you absolutely stepped in. You did an excellent job, and you're going to be greatly missed. Yeah.
All right, committee. Well, it's been a pleasure. Representative Gardner?
I've only been on this committee, what is it now, 2 years or something like that? I don't remember exactly. But Justin, you've been excellent. Every encounter I've had with you and in the committee, you're very professional, very patient person, which Chris is also, which is part of the job, the attributes you need to do this job, in my opinion. But I just want to say thank you, everything you've done. Good luck to you and your family in your new location in Washington.
All right, well, we're excited for you, and I know that each member of the committee can give you a hearty handshake and a slap on the back and a hug and all that good stuff, and the state of Kansas appreciates you, so thank you very much. All right, committee, and we are officially adjourned.